which of the rookies do you think landed themselves in the best situation to contribute quickest?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, when you get picked at the top of the draft, generally you're going into a team situation where they're going to give you a lot of latitude to play through mistakes. So there'll be a lot of guys who are, maybe not having playoff ambitions on their team from year one, but getting a lot of run. That's Scoot Henderson, Victor Wembanyama, Brandon Miller, Amen Thompson. The top four picks definitely check those boxes. But as you get a little bit further down in the draft, you find those guys who are on teams with playoff aspirations year one. So Jarris Walker, who ended up in Indiana this year, is one guy who I think is going to be able to play right away. Fits exactly what the Pacers needed from a positional standpoint. His defense and his kind of mentality really lends itself to being a guy that's going to contribute earlier in his career. And I like the connective passing that he kind of brings a lot of the little things to the table for the Pacers in that regard. I mean, I definitely think that, Grady Dick will get some minutes in Toronto because that's a team that desperately needs floor spacing, and his role is pretty simple in terms of translating what he did at Kansas to what he'll have to do in the NBA. And then if there's just one other guy that I would kind of throw out there as having a role a little bit earlier on, I do think that we're going to see fairly consistent minutes from Derek Lively in year one. I know there's a lot of big men in Dallas, but the sky's the limit for him. And what he's been able to prove as a rim protector is that he gets better on the fly. He needs those reps to continue to become the best version of himself, whether that's 12 to 18 minutes on a good playoff team. I think that's a reasonable expectation to set for a guy like Lively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to go back to the first guy you mentioned, Jarris. He was also the very first name on my list. I think he fit exactly into what Indiana needed, and I think he's such an excellent pairing with Miles Turner that it just makes too much sense, and he doesn't have a whole lot of competition in terms of minutes. Like, he could get thrown right into the mix and then have all these opportunities to gel with the other core players within the organization, with Halliburton, Mathurin, and they could really start to grow together. I think continuity is so important for young players to be able to build relationships on the court, to be able to figure out the nuances of your teammates' games early. So he should get that run early. You mentioned some of the other big names, but two others that I had circled, and again, aren't necessarily because of the system or they've got great players around them to make them look great. I mean, even though they do in some cases, but not. They're going to get thrown into the fire right away. And that's two guards in the West. I think Keontae George and Jalen Hood-Schifino, the two names that stood out to me, purely because of the depth or lack thereof. I mean, Utah, you've got Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, and Chris Dunn. Like, those are the guys that are going to be handing the ball primarily. Right as of this moment, I mean, we still got a little bit of time before training camp, a few more free agents out there. So This conversation could look different in a week from now. But we will see. As of now, I would expect Keontae George especially to get rotation minutes early on and to really be thrown into the fire for a Utah team that, after this John Collins trade, could swing themselves into winning basketball pretty quickly. And
he was a huge winner of Summer League. I mean, Keontae definitely showed that he belongs on an NBA floor sooner in his career rather than later. It's a good call.
Yeah. And with Jalen, kind of a similar situation. I mean, they signed Gabe Vincent, but I think kind of after this most recent playoff run, we saw that Gabe can be most himself, kind of moving off of the ball and going through some, fighting through pin downs and really bringing a lot of gravity to him. And Jalen could be just that excellent floor general that we saw at Indiana. And hopefully we see more and more shades of that game he had against Purdue, being able to kick out and to make everyone else on his team look good as he is like controlling the tempo of his offense.